just frosted me.
That bothered you, didn't it?
Yes, it did. I don't think it's right for the United States government to be transacting business through a slot machine. I sat down and wrote a letter to the Postmaster General about it.
Oh, you did?
Yes, I did. I didn't mail it, though.
Oh, why didn't you mail it?
I wouldn't buy a stamp from that machine.
Some TV legends played it cool. Don Knotts made panic hilarious, and that was his superpower. Long before sitcom awkwardness became a genre of its own, Knotts was turning twitchy nerves, darting eyes, and perfect comic timing into comedy gold as Deputy Barney Fife on The Andy Griffith Show. Barney was not just funny, he was unforgettable, and Knotts became one of the most cherished comedic actors in American television history because of it. His work on the show earned him 5 Emmy Awards and helped turn a small-town sitcom into a lasting piece of TV history. So while most people know the familiar version of the story, that Don left Mayberry because Hollywood came knocking, the truth gets a lot more interesting once money enters the picture. And since we're heading back to Mayberry, drop a comment and let us know whether you were always more of an Andy Taylor fan or a Barney Fife fan. Because when you look at what Don Knotts was actually being paid, the real story feels a lot less simple and a whole lot more shocking. Andy's smart play.
What it is, Pa, is that nowadays kids get 75 cents a week allowance instead of 25 cents.
75 cents? That's a lot of money. And in a year's time, that'd come to, see, there's 52 weeks in a year.
It comes to around $40 a year.
That's an awful lot of money for a young'un.
They get it, Pa.
They do, huh?
And they don't have to work for it like I do.
When The Andy Griffith Show launched in 1960, Andy Griffith wasn't exactly a proven Hollywood commodity. He had some stage experience and a film credit or two, but he wasn't a sure thing. That didn't stop his manager, Dick Linke, from making an incredibly shrewd business decision on his behalf. Knowing the network needed Griffith more than Griffith needed the network, Linke negotiated a deal that gave Andy majority ownership of the show itself. This wasn't just a nice perk. Owning a stake in the show meant that as it became a hit, Andy's earnings scaled with its success. The show ran for 8 seasons, was consistently ranked among the most watched programs on television, and syndication deals could make an ownership stake worth a small fortune. The arrangement also handed Andy significant creative control over the series. That kind of leverage was rare for a TV actor in the early 60s, when studios and networks held most of the power. Because Griffith had real money in the game, he had a seat at the table that his co-stars simply did not. None of this was exactly secret, but it created a very lopsided dynamic behind the scenes, especially when you compare what Andy was earning to what his most important co-star was taking home each week. What Don was actually making.
Listen, let's do this. How would you folks like to see yourselves on television? Yeah, that's what we'll do. We'll put the camera. You'll be surprised how you look. I mean, you look so much heavier on. Okay, now when the camera goes on, you just wave at the camera. That's fun. Go on, put the camera right on.
Don Knotts had no financial stake in The Andy Griffith Show. He was paid a straight salary, the same basic arrangement most working actors had at the time. And while a salary isn't unusual, the number is what's striking. Knotts earned approximately $1,250 per episode during his 5 seasons on the show. Run those numbers out over a full season, and you arrive at roughly $35,000 a year. That was a decent wage for a working TV actor in the early 60s, but it was nowhere near what Griffith was pulling in, and it didn't come close to reflecting Knotts' contribution to the show's success. Knotts' own manager, Sherwin Bash, later admitted just how bad the deal actually was. He described it as a terrible deal, one where Knotts essentially made no significant money across 5 years. That's a remarkable thing for a manager to say out loud about his own client's contract. The Emmy wins told one version of the story. Knotts took home 5 of them for his work on the show, which is almost unheard of for a supporting actor. But the paychecks told a very different version. The man who won more awards for the show than anyone else was also the one getting the smallest slice of the financial picture. The conversation that went nowhere.
I had a 5-year contract, and during the 5th season, I thought, geez, I better start looking around for more work. And I wound up getting an offer from Universal to do movies and do my own pictures.
By the time the show's 5th season wrapped, Don Knotts was one of the most decorated performers in television. He had also spent 5 years watching a show he helped make successful generate serious wealth for its star and owner while he collected a comparatively modest paycheck. At some point, Knotts decided he needed to talk to Griffith about changing that. The meeting happened after the 5th season, and by most accounts, it didn't go well. Knotts reportedly asked for a bigger piece of the financial picture, a share in the show's profits rather than just a salary. But Griffith apparently misunderstood what he was asking for, or perhaps misread the nature of the request entirely. Whatever exactly was said, the two men never reached an agreement. Knotts left the show at the end of that 5th season, and despite occasional guest appearances in later years, never returned as a full-time cast member. The character of Barney Fife would pop up now and then, but his time as the heart of the series was over. It's worth noting that neither man appeared to carry lasting bitterness about it. They remained close friends and collaborators for decades, with Knotts later appearing on Griffith's legal drama Matlock. The money dispute, if it really was the final push, never permanently damaged the relationship between them. Headed for Hollywood.
Well, I remember he told all the boys that he found a real skeleton in McQueen's barn.
Oh, a squirrel! A squirrel! I never said a person skeleton.
Now, you just quiet down, Luther. I'm going to have to cite you for contempt.
And they were my brother's shoes. That's why they fell off.
Attaboy, Luther!
Whatever the full truth behind that final conversation was, Don Knotts did make it to Hollywood, and he did so with genuine success. His first major post-Griffith film came out in 1966. The Ghost in Mr. Chicken translated his small-screen persona to the big screen in a way that worked, found an audience, and launched a run of Universal Pictures comedies that carried him through the late 60s and into the 1970s. Films like The Reluctant Astronaut and The Shakiest Gun in the West weren't critical darlings, but they made money and kept Knotts visible through the decade. He later formed a successful comedic partnership with Tim Conway, and the two made several films together that played to their respective strengths and drew warmly from audiences. By the late 70s, Knotts had taken on a recurring role on Three's Company as the flamboyant landlord Ralph Furley, introducing him to a new generation of viewers. The physical comedy still landed, and the role proved his appeal stretched well beyond Mayberry. Still friends after everything.
Well, Andy Taylor was a stalwart. He was dependable, and Barney depended on him a great deal, although he never owned up to it.
Tell me about Barney.
Barney could do anything.
Despite the financial disparity and murky circumstances of his departure, what stands out most in the full arc of Knotts' relationship with Griffith is how genuinely close the two men remained. They'd been friends since the 1950s, first working together on Broadway, and that bond never really fractured. Griffith could be candid about Don's work, even critical at times. When Knotts guest starred on Matlock, Griffith reportedly felt his old friend had picked up some overly broad habits from his years on Three's Company, and he said so. But that kind of candid critique actually speaks to the intimacy of the friendship, the kind of honesty most professional relationships never allow. People who spent time with both men later in their lives described Griffith as possessing a magnetic warmth, particularly around people he cared about. Knotts clearly fell into that category. When Don passed away in 2006, Griffith delivered his eulogy, and by all accounts, the grief was genuine. Now it's time to hear from you. If you ever watched The Andy Griffith Show, tell us below, did you keep watching after Barney left, or was Don Knotts the main reason you tuned in?